It's round 5 of the Siqnuefield Cup, and game of the day is the one between world's number 5, Nepomniachtchi, and world's number 3, Fabiano Caruana. It is an absolutely incredible game, a very short one, only 25 moves, and it features one of the most exciting openings in chess and involves a number of spectacular sacrifices. So, before we dive straight into the action, one little favor, and that is to hit the subscribe button. After this video, I want to have 6,000 subscribers, but please help to grow the channel even further. So thanks for doing that. And then I will show you the ins and outs of that fantastic game. Nepomniachtchi opens with 1 e4. We have the Sicilian defense, and after knight f3, the very first surprise of the game comes from Fabiano Caruana, who goes for the move g6. So we are ready for the Sicilian dragon. d4. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to g7. Now white does have a choice, of course. He can play here the move c4 with the so-called Morocci bind. Difficult opening to crack. I would have been very interested to see what Caruana had in mind playing against the Morocci, but Nepo goes for the move knight c3. Knight c6, bishop to e3, knight f6, bishop c4, all very standard, castling kingside, and the bishop goes back to b3, d6. So now, with this bishop being ready to be developed, the main threat here for black is to go knight g4, threatening the bishop on e3 as the bishop supports the knight coming to g4. Therefore, white played here the move f3, and now queen a5. This is a very popular line, has been played also by Hikaru Nakamura a number of times. I think it has become pretty popular as Anish Giri released a course on this variation some time ago. And the main line here is queen d2. And after knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop e6 is the idea. And this is a very solid line for black. In general, you don't mind the doubling of pawns. It will become harder for white to generate an attack. And very soon, the plan with b5 will give black chances to develop counterplay. So instead of queen d2, now it's Nepo who drops a surprise by, instead of playing queen d2, playing the move queen d3. Frankly speaking, this move I have never seen before. It's absolutely remarkable. What is the queen doing here? Because normally the queen on d2 is much better placed, working together with the bishop, with ideas later to try to trade off the dark squared bishops. Now with the queen on d3, the main point I think here is that you're discouraging black from ever getting in that pawn move b7, b5. The queen covers very well that square. But there are different ways of playing here for black. For instance, the move played by Fabiano, he played here knight e5. Looks like a very principled move to attack the queen. So you get this tempo, and knight e5 is actually quite a normal move for black in most lines of the Sicilian dragon. But of course, it does give different dynamics, because now after queen d2, white's knight is still on d4, and well, the aforementioned plans of neutralizing the pressure of this bishop on b3 with bishop e6, they're no longer available. Therefore, bishop to d7 played, castling kingside, queenside, pardon me. Rook fc8, also very standard move. You can always think, why to play the f rook, not the other rook? Well, sometimes you want to play rook ab8 and then push the b pawn. King to b1, solid move to solidify your queenside position. And now knight c4, also pretty standard in a lot of Sicilian dragons. And probably Fabiano was thinking that compared to the main lines, he's maybe even a tempo up, as you understand, after bishop takes c4, rook takes c4. I mean, white has wasted this tempo with queen d3 and then queen d2. So, looks like black is doing okay, but things are far from simple. But Nepo was blitzing out his moves. He was pretty confident and played here the move g4. But it turns out this is imprecise. A much better way of playing here is the move knight back to b3, attacking the queen. And the queen got a move. You want to stay active with the queen. If you play here the move queen a6, which is the move you would like to play. The queen is nicely placed on a6. We will see the difference with a game later on. But here, white doesn't have to go for the plan with g4. He can play the move e5, attacking the knight. And if you do take the pawn on e5, there is knight c5 with a knight fork, and white is about to win material. So it seems like after knight b3, you gotta go back with your queen to c7. So then, okay, the knight fork is out of question. e5 is not a threat. White can continue with g4, but looks like this is a nice position for white, with ideas to go g5 to kick the knight away. Then you can get your knight to d5 with another tempo hitting the queen. That was probably part of Nepo's preparation, but he mixed up the move order. Played here first the move g4. So similar ideas, of course. Black can consider doubling rooks on the c file, but Caruana felt like bishop e6 is a safe move. Now, once again, if you do take on e6 and take back with the f pawn, black is still rock solid. It's very difficult to break through on the king side. And with the knight on d4, also the power of the bishop on g7 is still a bit restricted. Well, anyway, position is still okay for white, but you got to change your plan here. Probably something like knight c e2, offering the exchange of queens. Looks okay. Maybe white is a bit better, but nothing too special. Anyway, Nepo, still believing that he is in preparation, now played the move knight b3, attacking the queen. But here the queen goes to a6, and you see the difference that the bishop is on e6. So this same plan with e5 doesn't make any sense. Pawn takes e5, and now knight c5. Yeah, it's not dangerous. The bishop can still be protected by the queen. So yeah, here white played differently. White played the move bishop to d4, anticipating the knight moving away, so that the dark squared bishops can be swapped very soon. Rook ac8. So here still white is doing not too badly, but you can feel the pressure. Like all black's major pieces and also the bishops are directed towards the white king. So you got to be very careful. But not sure what Nepo was thinking, but he still played pretty fast here. His next move, the move g5, very thematical idea. Like you want to kick the knight away, swap the bishops, and probably at some point the knight can come to the d5 square. But moving the knight away to the d5 square is probably not such a dangerous thing, because black does have pressure along the c file. But what do you think? This is an interesting question for you. Where's the knight going? You can go to d7, you can go to e8, you can even go to h5. You can also take with your knight on e4. It is very spectacular sacrifice, a very thematical idea in so many Sicilian dragons, and it's totally crushing here as well. Like for instance, if you do take with the knight takes e4, then the next sacrifice is to take with the rook on d4, and white is losing a very big pawn because the rook can't be taken. If you take with the knight, it's going to be checkmate on a2, as the bishop now defends the queen. King c1, checkmate on a1. That means knight takes e4 can be eliminated from the list. You got to take with the pawn, but now there is bishop takes d4. Also, very important idea. You got to take back with the knight on d4. Black is a piece down, but after rook takes c3, well, the position is also just really bad, as you eliminate the main defender of the pawn on c2. After b takes c3, it is queen takes a2, and the same mating pattern as we have seen earlier. So yeah, white is having a very big problem now. There are a number of options. You got to do something about his mating threat. Like in the game, they follow the move a3, but let's have a look. If you take with the knight on e6, you can't really take back, because then the rook will be taken on c3. But the key move here for black is to insert this move. Rook takes c2, and the position is just winning. For instance, if you take with the queen You take with a rook, king takes c2. You can already take with your pawn on e6. And the position, the endgame, with queen versus two rooks, should just be winning for black. You can even start with queen c4 check. That's a very clever move, because if king goes away, you take another pawn, and then you take the knight. You have 3 pawns and a queen for 2 rooks. It's technically winning. Anyway, after knight takes e6, rook takes c2, let me show you one other funny line. It is to move the queen away to d5. Like if you take on e6, there's queen takes e6, and all of a sudden white is generating play against the black king. So you better don't do that. But how to create mating threats? Well, don't play queen e2 with the idea to take on b2. There's knight e4 with a knight fork. And after rook takes b2, king a1, the queen on d5 still defends the pawn on a2. Let's go back. Fabiano was intending here to play the move queen b6, threatening mate on b2. If you move your pawn, then you can go with your queen to a6. Now the pawn on b3, make sure that the queen doesn't defend the pawn on a2, renewing the mating threat on a2. If you put the pawn on a4, then it is queen e2. And now moving the knight away is not possible, because you give a check on b2, king a1. And now with the pawn on b3, the queen is not helping out in defense. King b1, queen b2 is checkmate. So white is having very bad position here. Play the move a3 to stop the mating threat. But black's next move speaks for itself. Queen c4, renewing the mating threat on a2, as the queen and bishop have a renewed cooperation. Now, after knight takes e6, the queen also has another job of taking on c2 with a rook. Like the queen defends the rook, and next you can take the knight on e6. So here you're completely busted. And I should also point out, of course, that taking on c3 with the queen is not really gonna help at all. There is queen a2 check, king c1. You can take here on c3, b takes c3. You can take on a3. This sort of endgame, we have talked about it already a bit. It's queen versus 2 rooks, but black also has 2 pawns for it. White's pawn structure is really bad, so this is technically completely hopeless. Therefore, after queen c4, white played the move b3, solving the threat, attacking the queen, but now the rook is no longer hanging, and the queen can simply go back to c5. Very good move, attacking the pawn on a3. But well, there are so many issues here anyway. Rook c1 played to defend the pawn on c2 one more time, but queen takes a3 was played. And well, if you'd ever take on e6, f takes e6, I mean, position is just completely lost, 2 pawns down as white here. So white played the move h4. It's some sort of desperate attack, but black is much faster. Rook from c8 comes to c5. Now, if you continue with h5, the rook comes over to a5 with a mating threat either on a1 or a2. Therefore, white moved the rook away from c1. But that's also just lost. And there are many ways to convert. But when you have so many pieces looking at the white king, there should be a sacrifice. And Fabi didn't have any difficulties to spot this other blow of bishop takes b3. And here Nepo had seen enough. He resigned on move 25, felt disgusted with himself, mixing up his home preparation. The key point is that after taking with a knight, you sack the rook on b3 as well. C takes b3, queen takes b3, and it's just game over. For instance, if you block with a queen, there's queen d3 check. The king can't go to the center, has to go to the a file. But then it's rook a5 with check, queen a2, queen c3, king b1, rook b5, and it's checkmate next. This is one of the lines. There's also another line, is instead of queen b2, you can go king a1. Unfortunately for black, you can't play rook a5 because the queen covers this square. But queen a4 is a good check. Queen a2, queen d4. And if king b1 again, there is this plan with rook b5, and mate is going to follow soon. Queen b2, rook a5. So many checks. This is very easy for these guys to calculate. King b1, queen d3. If you go king c1, it's rook c5, and after interference of the queen, it's going to be checkmate. If you block with the queen straight away, it's rook b5 check. You got to keep the queen defended, king c1, but now the simplest move is rook to c5. Queen takes c5, d takes c5, and here again it's a queen and 4 pawns this time against 2 rooks. That is definitely hopeless. So you can see that excellent home preparation can also backfire, and here Nepo became a victim of his very deep idea which he invented with his team. Painful, very painful loss for him. Fabi must have felt relieved winning this game, because it was definitely not an easy move to deal with over the board. His queen d3 idea, I'm actually expecting more people to try it out, as there are still some issues to be solved there for black. So, well, hopefully we get to see many more dragons, and then I will try to cover it on the channel, of course. Let me know what you think of this game, and help the channel to grow. Give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, make a PayPal donation. Everything is possible, and I will deliver also. Thanks for watching.